Welcome to Marney Reid Presents Connect to Develop, where professionals come to connect with our guests, get tips on professional development, and to be inspired. I'm your hostess, Marney, and today we have the man that gave me my first shot in the medical industry and has been a mentor and a good friend for over a decade. Jeremy Laynor is the Senior Vice President of Global Sales and a member of the executive leadership team for Providence Medical Technology, Inc., and wrote an amazing book called The Point Guard Approach. He also teaches his son's basketball team, so can't tell if you saw that in the name. Our topic today is Put Me In, Coach, one of the most important success traits. So Jeremy, thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, super excited to be here, Marnie. Thanks for having me.
Great to have you with us. Jeremy, one of the traits I hear over and over when I ask senior leaders about why they picked certain individuals for promotions or to lead key initiatives is that they're coachable. Can you share for our listeners what being coachable means as it applies to professional development?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think there's a lot of really talented people out there, and I've been really fortunate to work with a number of them. And I think especially as a less experienced professional, the more that you're flexible, open, and willing to listen to feedback and truly listen, meaning you hear it, you accept it. It doesn't mean the feedback's always correct, but at least you're listening to the perspective of that person that's giving you that feedback, and you're open to really taking a good look at the mirror, saying, yeah, you know what, I can change this, I can do this, and really being open and flexible to trying those particular ideas. Those people tend to, rise, get promoted, execute really well at their role, and, do well at other roles and gaining additional responsibility. So, I think flexibility and having the confidence to be able to say, it's okay, I don't need to have all the answers, is really important. And those people are definitely ones that are coachable and are able to thrive in a variety of environments.
Do you feel like in one of the patterns I've seen, and this may just be predominantly because I've spent the majority of my career in the medical industry where there's a lot of, ex-professional athletes or people that were on teams, it feels like if you were an athlete or if you were on some kind of team where you did have a coach, I see those people kind of pivoting and adjusting faster than maybe those that didn't. Is there a correlation there?
No doubt. I think, whatever sport you played, especially team sports where, you're being asked to fulfill a specific role on a team and you're getting direction from coaches, even other teammates, captains, that, if you don't make those adjustments and you're not willing to change or accept a different level of responsibility, that you don't get on the field very much or the court. So, your willingness to take feedback and quickly pivot and implement that into whatever strategy of the game that you're in, that's what makes great players and great teammates. And if that can be instilled in you on the field or on the court, and absolutely translates and carries over to the professional business world. There's no doubt about it.
And it seems like those people would probably be less likely to take it from an emotional standpoint, which is, and I can speak from experience, having been coached before and taking it not so great and then being coached later and being much better about it. There's that level of emotional, ouch, that hurt. This person I care about that I'm working hard for just gave me, a you didn't do so well kind of thing. And I would assume, having been a coach and been an athlete, that you are able to easier remove the individual side of that feedback and take it as, okay, we need to win. What does it take?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny you bring up, as you were talking, I'm thinking about emotional intelligence, right? And there's been a lot written and researched and talked about with emotional intelligence. And, I'm a big believer in really researching, understanding yourself and the way you function, the way you think, and absolutely, this concept of not letting something get under your skin and understanding that, listen, there's areas that I'm going to be really strong in, there's areas that I have growth opportunities or I'm just not quite developed in, and not letting that become an emotional drag on you and kind of take you off your game, but instead, having the awareness and the ability to self-regulate, to say, okay, got it. take the emotion out of this, separate that, and really focus on what are you trying to accomplish, and what is that specific area of interest that you're trying to work on. And, listen, feedback comes in all shapes and sizes, and there's managers and coaches and leaders that are really talented at giving people feedback in a way that I think is very palatable. There's also those folks that aren't, and sometimes, you're getting feedback in a way that it doesn't resonate as well with you, and it can hurt a little bit, and you can take a little defense to it, and it's kind of a gut check. But I think those people that are able to, again, kind of self-regulate and really sift through that and put that feedback in the right place can use it as a driver to growth. And, and I think, again, that's probably what separates some performers out there is that ability to kind of take the feedback, process it in a way that doesn't create an undertow or the wrong momentum, and using it in a positive way.
I love hitting on that, EQ, emotional intelligence point. Could you give an example of someone who maybe hadn't developed that EQ, self-awareness, ability to control reactions, where you tried to give some coaching, it didn't work out, versus an example where, you saw potential, you gave some coaching and it did, just for our listeners, to kind of get an example in their heads of, okay, could I see myself in that situation? How would I have handled that? And then give them insight into someone who's coached a lot of people on what that does to you as someone who chooses to continue investing or says, I'm going to bench you.
Yeah, it's a great one. I mean, gosh, there's numerous examples. And I guess to keep the interested parties anonymous, let's just use fake names, if you will. But let's just say there's reps I've worked with, and one in particular, Mike, really talented. Just had the ability to go out, really strong work ethic, attacked and approached the building of this territory and the business development with it was a medical technology we were selling really well, and could get in front of customers, could access the customer. But, their actual selling technique was still really rudimentary, and it just, didn't understand how to probe, did a lot of just dumping of information on the positions they're telling, and they didn't listen. They did a lot of talking. And, the feedback after, working with this representative for a couple of days is like, hey man, you're doing a great job in all these areas, but you got to stop and pause and ask some questions and listen to the customer, because you're telling them a lot of information and they're not getting it. And he was like eyes in like headlights to me, because he felt like he's working so hard and doing great things and generating all these meetings, but really wasn't getting a ton of adoption of the technology. He went back and I kind of said, here's what I want you to work on and think about when I come back to work with you. Let's see where, you've made some headway. And he just didn't accept it. It wasn't something he implemented, and he continued to kind of go down, and the results spoke for themselves, which he was getting by, but he wasn't accelerating. He wasn't getting the full potential out of, his own abilities. And conversely, I'll talk about somebody else who you know very well, which is you. You and I had the experience to work together, and you were brand new in medical device sales, and you got a lot of feedback from me over, a pretty long period of time. And I think the amazing part was, like, for a year in a brand new territory at the time you were in San Diego, you didn't sell anything. You didn't sell anything, and everybody around you is selling, like all your colleagues.
I think my KPIs were get in a case, get into surgery, make it past that red line.
Exactly. But the one thing you did was listen, to me. And it was just like, listen, you need to do this, this, and this. And without getting into all the grim details of the coaching, it's like every time we worked together, I left you with 2 or 3 things to do, and you did them. So when I came back, there was progress, and it didn't happen fast, but when it happened, boy, great results, right? So within, I don't remember all the time frames, but let's call it that next couple months, about after your year hit, all of a sudden you're in cases, then you're in a bunch of cases. And then, within a year or so, you're winning President's Council, and you're a top rep and building this multi-million-dollar territory from scratch. So, and I'm sorry to put you on the spot, but that was I think a really good example of 2 different ways to accept feedback. And the feedback I was giving you was no nicer than when I was providing that to Mike, but Mike chose to, go a different direction.
Yeah, and I would say to the listeners out there, having been on the receiving end of that, and to the point you made earlier of the way that feedback is given, you did a phenomenal job of managing to the person, who needed that kind of like, I'll call it the P90X coach, right? That just screams at you to like, jump higher, lift more, and you're like terrified. And you realize with other people that they needed like almost a challenge, like, okay, this is what we did well this time. What if we did this, this, and this next time? And made it kind of more like I'm taking down that next thing. And so I would challenge the people out there who have the amazing opportunity to coach someone else, whether it's, athletics or in their professional world, and whether it's even a formal coaching, right? Or a colleague coming to you asking for advice, is what is that person's personality profile? How can you share that coaching in a way that makes them feel like they're going to get to that next goal, instead of like, man, you really stink because of, these 3 reasons. So let's give a scenario. That was a great one about sales. Let's now pivot, because while you are in the sales department, you have a very corporate role. You've held one for, quite a number of years. Let's say I'm someone who's, we call an individual contributor. I've been about, 2-4 years in the workplace. I really think I have a lot of potential. I've been getting great feedback, from the bosses and some of the executive leaders, and I just can't get to that next level. From the coachability standpoint, what is that person now charged with to move their career forward? Can you give us some tips on how to do that?
Sure. I think one thing I believe in is mentorship and getting external. So if that individual contributor is kind of hitting a wall within their organization, can they find somebody outside of the organization that's maybe doing something like they want to do? So they're either in the role that this person wants to be in, but maybe they're not doing it at that company, they're doing it somewhere else. And can they develop a mentorship with them where they're able to talk on some regular basis about the steps and about the characteristics and the skills that they needed to develop to take that step forward in their career? Sometimes we find that within our own organization, walls can be built up, or there's all different dynamics. And when you can get external, it doesn't even have to be in the same industry, you can get a lot of great ideas, and you can open yourself up to the types of connections and networking that really, I would say, improves your vision. I'm a big believer in vision, and it's actually, you mentioned my book, but one of the areas I really believe that, you can work on, you develop. You don't have to be born with great vision, but you can develop over time is just where am I looking? What do I see in my market, or outside of my market, or outside of my industry? And how can I leverage that to get to where I want to be? And, so I think that's probably a primary example of, if you're stuck and you're kind of hitting walls, get outside of where you're stuck and find alternative pathways. I think mentorships and developing a network outside of your immediate organization is a great path.
Absolutely. And that's a great pivot into the book. So first of all, where can we find your book for our readers? Or I'm sorry, no one's reading this. Well, unless you have subtitles on, you might be. So fair. For our listeners out there who, it's really resonating what you're saying, they feel like they could gain a lot of tips for you. Where can we find your book? And what are 3 things that the readers of your book would walk away feeling like they're now empowered to do?
Bad news is the book's not done yet. The Point Guard approach is in final phases of editing. We're close though. We're close. So
coming down the pipeline.
To stay informed though, we did put together a landing page. It's just thepointguardapproach.com. So you can go check that and sign up. There's actually an email address you can log in, and then we'll send you updates as it becomes available. But I am hoping that within the next 3 to 6 months, we're out, and then we'd be on every major Amazon, the whole network of anywhere you typically find your favorite books. So as far as 3 takeaways from the Point Guard approach, well, I'll give you just a quick synopsis of how we got to the Point Guard approach. I was not a writer. I still don't consider myself a writer yet, I guess. But over the course of the last 4 to 5 years, I did a ton of travel with, being a VP of sales or an area vice president. You're on the road a lot. And what I found is I had a lot of downtime, but not in a way that I could interact with my family or friends. I'm on planes, trains, and automobiles. And I had, started to come up with this concept. I was like, wow, I learned a lot about what I do currently as a leader on the basketball court. I played, since I was in second or third grade, and I was really fortunate to play college basketball. And, it was a big part of my life for a really long time. And there's these concepts and what they ended up becoming was principles for me, like vision, like assists, finishing, flexibility, fundamentals that are really powerful in my life, as well as a lot of other people that are really successful that I've seen. And what I wanted to do is trying to create the correlation so that others might be able to share in that, whether you like basketball or not, or play any sports for that matter. I think people can relate to these pillars and these, principles that you can use as a framework for sustaining success. And why that's important, I think why that might be attractive to some of your listeners is that there's a lot of people, especially in sales, that can go out and have a great year, have a great quarter, maybe string together 2 years. But who can do it over time? How do they build a framework? What do they lean on? What are those values that allow them to be successful year after year after year and move through their career in that pattern? So some people don't want to be a sales rep forever. Some people want to be, a manager. Some others want to be a CEO. An engineer may not want to be an individual contributor forever. Maybe they want to build a team of engineers in their own company. So what I hope is within the book is that people can pick up on some of these concepts and these pillars and apply them with their own strengths and kind of customize that framework for themselves to find sustained success and be better for it. So really excited about it, and hopefully, like I said, next 3 to 6 months, and we'll definitely let you know once it hits the marketplace.
Well, I can't wait for it. I expect a copy. I'll probably get on the Kindle, let's be honest. Well, that's our time.
You will definitely get a copy.
Yes. All right. That's our time for today, Jeremy. Always awesome to connect with you, get great tips from you. I always have some really good key takeaways walking away from this. And for our listeners, if you were inspired by this, definitely please visit that website, buy the book, especially for those of you who are listening to this after it launches. And please feel free to share this podcast with friends and colleagues and on your social media channels. For more about this podcast and other interviews, please visit marneyreid.com. Thank you, Jeremy.
Thanks, Marty. Great talking to you.